Hi. It's the cocktail of post-pandemic, cost of living, all the pressures, toxic masculinity. Need I go on?
Yeah, I don't think it's easy being a man nowadays, and the problem is that I think that it goes hand in hand. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago on the show. It goes hand in hand with why also there is misogyny from men as well, because it's an anger.
All right, so what is going on here? Well, I stumbled across this channel on YouTube called Talk TV, and they do have some interesting things to say sometimes. Now, this is Christo, and he's not a very good speaker, and I don't know if he recognizes that. He does say that he's like on amateur radio sometimes. So let's go ahead and dive into this video here. They're talking about how things are looked at when it's a crime based on political point of view. Before we dive in, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed, because YouTube does unsubscribe people every single day. And you can find me on Rumble, Twitter, BitChute, and Odyssey. I want to thank everybody for stopping by and supporting my channel, even though probably most of you hate watch my channel. I don't know about that, but he does say, like, if they hate you, they're going to watch you more. So
Here on Talk. Oh dear. Oh, I've upset someone this morning. This guy Christo is so amateur, says Griftaz. I just turned on and I thought I picked up local hospital radio. Is this what he does? A one-way conversation with the producer discussing any rubbish he can muster? Oh, absolutely. You just realised that. Of course that's what I do. His salad and now his scabby body and his boyfriend's lovely scent. I never use the word boyfriend. I always use the word him indoors. Bluster and blather. Okay, well, just to make you happy, Griftaz, let's turn our attention to genocide. And to discuss that and looking through some of the big stories this morning, I'm joined by the broadcaster Ebbs Akintade.
We're not talking about genocide.
Say that again?
We're not talking about genocide.
No, I've been talking about fun things this morning, because I thought, it's a Sunday morning and maybe we should be light-hearted, but Griff says no. It's amateur, it's hospital radio, so let's...
for one person, we're going to talk about genocide.
OK, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. Suicide.
If you don't like it, don't listen.
No, they'll listen for longer. That's the best advice I was ever given. If they hate you, they will absolutely be there every single show. Every single show.
So also write in or text in, whatever, and...
tell you.
yeah, I wonder if that's more of an English thing, honestly. I think Americans are more prone to be like, I don't like that guy, I'm not going to listen to him. I don't like the guy, I'm not going to follow him, not going to support him in any way. And that might come from the fact that everything in the United States is money driven. It's so crazy how focused we are on the almighty dollar to our own detriment.
How much they hate you. Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So, any suicidal thoughts?
No, not today.
Not today? No. So you're all right?
I'm all right. I haven't committed any kind of genocide either.
No, oh, all right. Well, it's nice to get that clarification.
Just to be clear.
It's awful, actually. I mean, to be honest, on a serious note, the suicide figures came out this week, and they are absolutely awful. For men, they're absolutely appalling.
It doesn't surprise me.
Why?
It doesn't surprise him. It doesn't surprise me either. What do you know? Men have been stepped on now for generations in the West. Told that we're worthless, that we're thugs. We don't bring anything to the table. Oh, the M&Ms. Hey, there's a bowl of M&Ms. There's 100 M&Ms in there. Only one of them is poison. Feel free to eat as many as you want. And the number's not even that high, I don't think, for men who are going to hurt a woman. I don't think it's 1 in 100. That's the line they like to spread.
Why?
It's the cocktail of post-pandemic, cost of living, all the pressures, toxic masculinity. Need I go on?
Yeah, I don't think it's easy being a man nowadays, and the problem is that I think that it goes hand in hand. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago on the show. It goes hand in hand with why also there is misogyny from men as well, because it's an anger.
Yes.
And it's either an anger I think they turn on themselves,
yes,
or it's an
or
anger
turn
they
outwards.
turn outwards.
Yes, I was literally talking about it with someone yesterday.
Yeah, and it's so true. And my fear with what Labour are saying about misogyny, and that they're going to bring in this I guess this task force, this way of trying to deal with misogyny.
All right, before he tells us what his problem is, if you haven't noticed this, it's been floating around the web. Now, misogyny is considered a crime in England. That's thought police. That's your creed. That's your religion. If your religion is, hey, look, women are inferior, they should be subjugated, you are allowed to have that belief system. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying it's a good one. But you're allowed to think what you want to think. You're allowed to worship your own belief system. You're allowed to do that. At least in the United States. Obviously in England, they have a different point of view. I don't think you should be hurting people. That's not okay. I mean, especially not women. I mean, why would you want to hurt women anyway? But women definitely want to hurt men. There are lots of women out there who are like, they want to hurt themselves and they want to hurt men. It's so crazy to me how they can't see the bigger picture. And what this used to be, we used to recognize this. And I'm going to be called misogynist for this. We used to recognize that women are emotionally driven and they need a strong man who is a blood relative, ideally, a blood relative who's going to tell them, look, don't do that. That's not in your best interest, young lady. Even adult women, older women who are in the middle ages, who are middle-aged, women who are middle-aged, would still make bad choices. And you can see this, you can find it on the web, you can look at the red pill channels, and they will occasionally bring up a middle-aged woman who's just making terrible choices. I've talked about it just recently in a video when I did one on all these middle-aged women are just divorcing their husbands. It's like, is that the best choice for you? Really? You might not be happy in your marriage. Okay. You might want to leave that because you're not happy, but are you going to be happy outside your marriage?
Is like with so many issues that we have nowadays, they'll just criminalize the problem, which is fair to do that. You know, if you're being violent or terribly misogynistic in a way that is threatening or anything like that, absolutely needs to be criminalized without actually looking at the root causes as to how we've got to a point where there is such an epidemic of misogyny.
But their argument would be they don't have enough time. There's not enough time. There's not enough investment in the actual bodies behind looking into the psychology and mental health, all these things. It's just like, let's fix the problem instantly instead of actually looking into what the problem is.
But is it a problem? Is it a problem to be misogynistic? I mean, if you just have these thoughts, you can't necessarily control your thoughts. I mean, we don't criminalize people who are schizophrenic. We criminalize their actions. That's what we're supposed to do. And they just want to, they're saying here is they just want to stop the misogyny, all of it. If you think misogynistically, you're the problem. But thinking misogynistically is not the problem. Especially when you're saying, hey, you know what? I think things were better when we were trying to like have women stay home and raise the kids, focus on family first. I think that was a better system. And then you're called misogynist for that. But even women now are coming forward saying, you know what? This working stuff is not what I want. What I want is I want a family. I want to have kids. Why is it that I work 9 to 5 every day? Well, 5 days a week anyway. Sometimes I work on weekends even. Sometimes I have to pick up slack at home at night. I don't have time to even go out and find a man to have babies with.
It just isn't that.
Well, they do with certain things.
Yeah, but
like
maybe
crime.
if
If you talk to someone who is on the left of politics and you say, oh, we need to arrest everyone with knife crime and do stop and search, they'll say, no, that's a part of it. You've got to look at the causes, you've got to look at how we got here, you've got to look about whether it's, role models or a lack of resources or feeling like you're isolated or joining a gang and all that stuff. So for some crimes that are trendy, the left, I hate sort of defining people as left and right, but this is sort of something on the left. They'll say, no, you've got to look at the root causes.
Yes.
But when it comes to crimes that are considered to be sort of crimes of the right, like misogyny, or we saw it a bit with the riots, we were talking about this
racism,
yesterday, they'll say, no, we don't look at the causes because you're just evil, you're terrible people. And there is a double standard there. And so...
All right. I'm glad he brought this up. This has been something that I have been needing to talk about for a long time, because this happens in the United States too. So... what's happening here? What is he saying? Because I know he has an accent and he's a bad speaker. I mentioned this at the begining. I'm not a great speaker. I'm not going to sit here and say, look, I got this down. No. Some of you have pointed it out to me. It's like, work on your speaking skills. You need to. And I have. I've gotten a lot better. You look at my early videos. Man, I look back at those. I watched some of those and I'm like cringing. Wow, I was terrible. No wonder I don't have a following on YouTube. Yeah, the legal system in the West, if they perceive a crime is happening from the left, it's a systemic this, it's a racism that, it's a sexism that, they're just poor innocent Aladdins. They're like Aladdin, they ran around. He was a street rat. He had no choice but to steal because he was trying to survive. And when it's a crime that is perceived as coming from the right, those people are just evil. Just get rid of them. Throw the book at them. Arrest them, throw them in prison. And it's usually something, especially here, what we're seeing here in England, it's not even a crime. Misogyny is not a crime. The thoughts that I have in my head are not a crime. And thinking, like I said just a moment ago, simple things like, girls would probably be happier working in jobs like nursing, working in childcare, as a daycare provider. Girls would probably be happier working in those jobs. That's misogyny. I'm like, no, that's just the reality. Women like those sorts of things more than men do. And we don't want men working in a lot of those. Like, I don't want a man being my daycare provider. That's just not what I want. I want a girl doing that. Anyway, let's see what they have to say.
So my fear is we don't then solve the problems. And a part of the solution is criminalizing. You criminalize the people on the right. You criminalize people who are violently misogynistic. Absolutely, you should.
Yes.
But it also that you don't solve the problem only by criminalising. You're solving actually the symptom by criminalising it.
We're talking about the riots here.
Riots, misogyny. The crimes that are considered to be crimes of, I suppose.
The more outward crimes.
The more outward crimes of the right, I suppose.
I think it's not even on the right. It's just the crimes full stop, because it's not like you can say
no, because
so this, for not knowing his name, the black guy, the non-Christo guy, the black guy because stupidity knows no color. This guy's an idiot from what I could see so far watching this channel. He's sitting there saying like, oh, we criminalize outward crimes. No, Christo's going to explain it here. Let's watch and see what he has to say.
Certain crimes we do it for. Okay, if we go to the riots, the 2011 riots, when the Conservatives came to power then, and there were these huge riots as a result of the death of Mark Duggan.
Yeah.
We analysed the causes of those riots endlessly. We criminalised the people that carried them out, but we analysed them endlessly because they were a riot of the left.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter riots. Again, the big disorder that took place as a result of Black Lives Matter, where police officers were injured and statues were damaged and all of those sorts of things. Keir Starmer back then was saying he understood people's anger and then was photographed taking the knee on the side of the people, of the cause, where people had been violent. Now, again, criminalise the violence, but absolutely reasonable to say, but, what is the point you're trying to make behind that violence? Because it's awful that you're violent. It's awful that people were racist in the riots. Horrific, terrible. But it's only certain crimes or certain disorder that we say, well, let's take a more holistic view and look at the bigger picture. Crimes, I think, that are considered more crimes of the right, i.e. these sorts of
riots
we've had recently, perhaps something like misogyny, certain things, we don't get that.
No, because I think they're outwardly negative. The basis.
No, idiot. He just said the BLM riots were not. They were like, oh, we got to analyze that and find out these poor people. They're so oppressed. They've been so oppressed for so long. They're so poor, and there's racism against them. Therefore, we have to dismiss the crimes that they're committing. Now, he's probably talking very much about England, the United Kingdom, in and of itself. Here in the United States, well, we saw that they were calling them peaceful protests. There's fire going on all around the reporter. Oh, this is a peaceful protest. Excuse me? Even going so far as to say, oh, they're fiery but peaceful. Mostly peaceful. Okay. No, they're not peaceful protests if you're burning down parts of the city, if you're lighting fires. There were people who died as a direct result of these so-called peaceful protests. Okay? They're not peaceful. What do I know, though? I'm just some guy who rants on the internet about stuff.
Of them is ignorance, and I think that's the difference. So when it comes to people, that's why we had to make that. I think in the early days of the rioting that was happening up and down the land, it was making sure that we didn't call them protesters, we called them rioters, because I think the end game was to cause disruption, harm.
Which riots are you talking about now?
This is the riots we had recently.
Yes.
So it was quite clear that there was an absolute negative racist connotation that was underpinning all of those riots.
Now, I did not follow the British broadcast of these riots closely. I've seen quite a bit of it, but maybe I'm missing something. Let's just say that I'm missing something because I'm not there, right? I just assume that I don't get the full picture. You don't get the full picture, period, even if you are there. What I saw was a lot of white native-born Englanders going, why are we allowing these foreign people to come into our country and end the lives of our female children because these people have a wild hair up their ass that says that women and girls should behave in a certain way, and we don't have that in our culture. We allow women and girls to do whatever they want to do, to be autonomous, free citizens. I mean, obviously, girls, they're children, so they don't have full autonomy, but the adult women have full autonomy. So that's the way we do it here. Let's see what he's going to say.
Yes, that's the difference. But so hence you could punish those people.
I don't think that's
straight away,
because it's a form of radicalization. And in any other crime where there is radicalization involved, knife crime is a form of radicalization. You've been radicalized into thinking that you need to carry a knife for whatever reason it might be. And we look at the causes as to how you got to that frame of mind. If you look at Islamic extremism, massive problem that we have with that. But if that has led to someone either planning an attack or extreme views or whatever, we criminalise it correctly, but we also endlessly talk about what got that person to the point that they were vulnerable to being radicalised.
Yes.
Was it YouTube? Was it that they didn't feel a part of British society? Was it that they were something that might have happened within their religious teaching? We look at the causes that got to the point where they were radicalised.
Yes, and I do think that.
See, he explains it for a second time to his co-host, I guess this guy is, but he's still going to argue against it. And it's so funny to me. They're talking about knife crime here in England. We're talking about gun crime here in the United States. It's people are going to commit these terrible acts with whatever weapon they can have at their disposal. Is it easier to take a gun and end the lives of a large number of people than it is to take a knife and do that? Yes, it is. I'm not going to deny that at all. I own a revolver. I could strap on 4 of those, and then there's 24 opportunities for me to end a life. If I have a knife, that's a lot harder to do. But as you can see, it's happening here in England. Why? What is the underlying cause is what the left wants to go, oh, well, what is the underlying cause if it's a black person, if it's a brown person committing these crimes? They're not at fault. It's because they're so oppressed in the West. That's why. It's because they come from a culture where they've been oppressed, and they come here and they don't know how to act. That's why. This black guy can't get it.
Happens in the cases of like Shamima Begum and whatever else.
Absolutely.
Because they've been radicalized when they were young, as opposed to just outright stupidity. It's at what point were they fed this information and then believed it? Who did it come from? Trying to find the background.
And that's how you solve problems. That's how you solve problems.
Yes,
you have the 2 stages. You have the criminalizing of the symptom, i.e. what you have planned as a result of that radicalization, whether it's carrying a knife or whatever else. But then you've also got the holistic view of how did people got there? What were the elements that got them to that stage? But Keir Starmer and those people in authority did none of that with the riots that we've recently seen.
No, because I think there needed to be, there were quite a few agendas at play there, because he needed to be seen as to being absolutely active in destroying and deterring people from rioting in that way. I think it happened at a time in which, he was the new Prime Minister, needed to make an impact and needed to do something really quickly, and I think that worked very much in his favour.
And here we go, explaining it away. It's oh no, the reason that those crimes were not analyzed, and it's not because those people are seen as the baddies of society. It's because of this Prime Minister. Whatever.
Favour. The difference is that you don't need to look into the reasons why people have turned racist, because racism will always exist. And that kind of mentality only took a small little spark to cause that inflammation.
So I disagree. I think that those people believed wrongly that well, look, some people, you're right to a point where some people I think are just racist.
Yes,
you're just going to have
and it will always exist.
Some people will be there.
Yes.
But I don't believe that people wake up one morning and say, right, I'm going to be racist this morning. I think that it's a process to get to that point. And when I say racist, I mean...
Okay, so I think he's explaining this in a piss poor manner. There are people who are like, definitely like, I'm racist, it's whatever. You're going to have that with people. There's people who are like, no, it doesn't really matter what you look like. It doesn't really matter, what your genetics are. You're just a person just like everybody else, but they have an underlying programming, whatever that may be, that they're going to start seeing stuff happen often in a group of people that are of a specific race or ethnicity, and then they're going to just start saying, you know what, this has happened enough times, F it, it's because of these people. And then there's other people who are like, no matter what, that switch is not going to flip. I don't know if that's true or not, but at the very least, I know plenty of people in my life who are just like, we're just people, everybody needs to get along. But then when they see enough times of something happening, enough of the same behavior out of a group of people, then they're going to be like, yeah, okay, screw it. These people are the problem.
I mean, anyone different as well. I mean, it's because I think that this was sort of 30 years in the making of people who were angry about immigration, angry about the lack of infrastructure, angry about the idea of perhaps other ethnicities, maybe mainly white working class people, other ethnicities being put ahead of them. And I don't think that in those instances, the more educated, sophisticated view is taken, i.e. when they're angry about those sorts of things, they're not angry at the state and the governments that have failed them, they're angry at the people themselves that are seemingly being put ahead of them, seemingly
taking jobs off them
or whatever it might be.
So he just said the same thing that I said, probably more eloquently than I said it. Like I said, I'm not a great speaker. Don't have any illusions about that. But he also pointed out that they're not going after the government, they're going after the people themselves. But you can't go after the government. The government has all in the UK, it's my understanding you can get a gun still, but it's very difficult. So the government has the guns. You can't go after the government. They have all the monopoly on force, other than, you have your vote. Oh, I'm going to vote in Labor. I'm going to vote in, the Conservatives, whatever. I'm going to vote this and that, just like here in the United States, but nothing changes. And if it does change, it doesn't change that much. So you need to have big radical sort of movements like this, these riots that they've had over the last few weeks. I think those have died down now. Where we saw the native-born white Englanders were getting punished and arrested, were getting beaten by the police, etc., for just saying, hey, look, I believe this. And maybe there was more to those stories in some cases, but I'm sure there's a lot of those cases where it's, oh, you're being arrested for thought crime. It's not okay.
And that has and also what's happened online, because again, if politicians have failed them, they'll find other people online who will perhaps
have the same
their best interests at heart, that they'll then go, thank God, at least someone's saying it.
Yes.
So that's how they've got to the stage where they are then racist. It's still abhorrent and it's still absolutely wrong, but we either solely criminalise them and perhaps not then make people less racist and solve the problem of how people have got to that stage in the first place, or we say, right, they're criminal and they're wrong and it's dreadful. Attacking someone for their race in the street is appalling, but on the scale where it was happening on the streets in a riot, they're not isolated. Why have that group of people got to the stage where they think that's the course of action?
But you can say,
I think that's how you solve problems.
Yeah, it is, but I think with things like rioting, you also need to make it clear that that kind of behaviour, for that reason, is wrong.
Yeah, you do both. But
you're not trying to. You're not for those people who did riot and are currently in jail at the moment. You're not going to try and. Are you going to try and psychoanalyze them and go, well, what made you become racist?
No, you're going to psychoanalyze what's failing in society that got them to that stage. Just like Keir Starmer did after Black Lives Matter, saying, okay, look, there's been this terrible disorder, but I understand why you're angry, and look, I support you. I'm going to take the knee, because he took a holistic view. And right, I agree with criminalization.
You can only have a holistic view for something like Black Lives Matter, where it was for the greater good.
Yeah, but that's because you agree with the cause. That doesn't mean that that's agreeing with the cause.
Yeah, there at the end. Of course, exactly. You agree with the cause, so therefore Black Lives Matter has to have a holistic view. Because what really led to black people and people who are sympathetic with the cause rioting all over the world, and it's like, okay, and you see this, I saw a video coming out of England where a guy said, all lives matter, and a guy was like, no, they don't. Only Black Lives Matter, or whatever. And a guy said, white lives matter. And another video out of England, this guy was like, no, they don't matter at all. And the thing is are you sympathetic with these ideas or not? And that's what's going to determine whether or not you think it deserves to be analyzed. If you disagree with the protests in England that have been happening recently against massive immigration, against Islam taking over the country, which it's trying to do. So many videos I've seen on Twitter of Muslims praying in the streets, and they talk about how many mosques there are in London. I don't know how many mosques there are in London, but it's enough that why are the Muslims praying in the streets? Why can't they pray at a mosque? Is it that there's too many Muslims and not enough mosques, or is it that the Muslims are being intentionally disruptive to London? I've spoken with Muslim people, and they're like, no, we're not stupid about it. You're not like in the middle of surgery going to stop and pray, right? You have to operate on this guy. So what is going on in England where these Muslims have to pray in the streets? My guess is they're trying to take over the culture. They're trying to infuriate the native-born Englanders and get them to either act violently against the Muslims or start a war with the Muslims, or just finally capitulate to the way that the Muslims want things done. And it's not a secret what's going on in Europe. It's not a secret. We've seen videos of the Muslims coming out and saying, we're going to take over Europe. We've seen videos of, I guess, more peaceful Muslims, more egalitarian Muslims, something, I don't know what, or ex-Muslims saying, yeah, that's what they're doing. The Muslims are trying to take over. That's their intention. They're trying to move into Europe and take over the entire continent, and they want to destroy Christianity, or they want to destroy white people, even though Islam is not it's a religion and it's not a race. But there are people who've conflated the religion with a race, and that race is not white people, whatever that race is. Yeah, it's just terrible what's going on in England, and my ancestors are rolling over in their graves because my ancestry is, if you watch my channel, my ancestry is largely Romanian, and they were the ones keeping Islam out of Europe. They saw it as a bad thing. And based on what we're seeing happening in England, I would tend to agree with them, because if you got people going around saying, look, this is against my religion, therefore you deserve to take a knife to the face, that's not good. I don't know I don't know what to tell you other than, yeah, don't do that. Don't hurt people because they're of a different religion than you are. As I said throughout this video, yeah, don't go around hurting people. You're allowed to have whatever thoughts you want to have. If your religion says, hey, look, I can hurt these people because they're a different religion than me, okay, your religion needs to be stopped. At the very least, your religion needs to be contained to a certain part of the world where you can just like stay there and worship that religion and don't bother other people. That's just how it has to be. Because you got a religion coming in to Europe going, yeah, we disagree with you, native Europeans, so therefore we get to take your life from you. That can't happen, okay? And there's going to be people who are going to say, oh, no, it's the religion of peace. It doesn't say that anywhere, blah, blah, blah. It says smite the unbelievers above the neck. I don't know what to tell you. That's my understanding, that the religion does say that in their official texts somewhere. So I've not studied it thoroughly, but that's what I've been privy to at this point. So you're going to have to do something about it, England. I know what the solution is. Unfortunately, you're not going to implement that solution. It's very simple, very, very simple ideas. There's nothing complex about these. There's no algorithmic equations, no differential equations. It's very, very easy to solve this problem. England could do it in a week. The problem would be solved 100%. No more issue. They're not going to listen to me, but I'm going to still talk about these things until the woke are gone, because woke is evil. So anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you all in the next video.